Now you're going to learn an effective way to organize your study sessions. What you're about to watch is an adaptation from the cycle EARA. The EARA cycle was created by a Brazilian called Fernando Mesquita. And if we were to translate it, we could call it the EARA cycle. It would be studying, application, reviewing, and then adapting or adaptation. And if you're trying to learn Portuguese, it would be estudo, aplicação, revisão, and adaptação. This adaptation of the EARA cycle or the EARA cycle was created by Ana, who teaches this course in Portuguese. Before we dive into the cycle itself, let me point out that the first portion of this 4-step process is the longest to explain, but it's also the one that you're going to spend the most time in. It should account for about 43% of your study cycle. Okay, let's go into it. During this first step, which should be studying, you should be asking yourself the following questions. 1. What is your goal with this study session? 2. What specific subject are you about to study? 3. What material are you going to use? See your notes, YouTube videos, podcasts? 4. Prepare what you're going to need. Take the pens, papers, highlighters, and all that stuff and bring it close to you. 5. Determine how long the study session will be. It should be somewhere between 25 and 60 minutes. Generally, most of us cannot focus for over 60 minutes without being marginally less productive, meaning you're becoming less and less productive over time. Now, you can give it a shot. If you're studying for 40 minutes and you start feeling like, you're kind of just starting thinking of something else, well, there you go. You know your limit. 6. Pomodoro your day away. You know this by now, so you should have 25 to 6-minute sessions with 5 to 10-minute breaks and a longer break after 4 cycles. 7. Finish designing your environment. Bring your water bottle, your charger, make sure everything is set in place. 8. Determine if you're going to listen to music or not. 9. You probably want a quiet space for studying, but also know that you need to still be able to focus on a louder environment because wherever you're taking tests, chances are it's not going to be fully quiet. 10. Remember, you're not starting a session from scratch because you already went to the class and now you're going home or the library to study and answer questions. 11. If you recorded audio, then this is when you add it to your notes. Don't forget the advantage and the disadvantage of doing so. The advantage will be that all of the material will be there in that audio. The disadvantage is that all of the material isn't there. That means you would be taking the same amount just to listen to the same material. You take a whole other class. So you can decide whether it's worth it for you to do so. 12. There are 3 types of material that you should know. First, the textbooks or books or class, so that is the primary source. Then your notes, the material you created, so your mind maps, for example. And during the revision, this is what you're going to use. And finally, you have practice tests or problem sets. A note before we go into this next part of this process. It may feel like a lot of work, but eventually you get used to it, and it really doesn't feel like that much work. You can get most of this done fairly quickly. The second part is the application. This is where you're going to take problem sets or tests and you're going to take them. This is also your chance for, once you're done with that problem set, going over the questions that you missed. So now this is where you need to be a lone wolf and go practice by yourself. If you were studying music and now you got that part of the song wrong, well, you need to go practice that over and over. If you're doing math and you got that problem wrong, you need to focus on that problem and you need to solve 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those until you don't get it wrong anymore. By the time you're done with this step, you should know all of the material. If you still have questions, you're still not done with this part of the process. Now, the step 3 is about reviewing. It's about remembering, because don't forget that when you're reviewing, you're not studying. And guess what? Your brain forgets stuff, but it doesn't take much to remind it. And that kind of makes sense because think of this, the amount of information we take every day, your brain just can't remember it all. And it gets to choose what you're going to remember by how often you use it. If you use it every day, your brain decides, oh, this material is important, so I'm just going to keep it readily available. And this is why we review our own notes. And notice that I'm saying our own notes, not the class notes. Because again, your own notes are internalized. Those are things that your brain created. Those are things that you've made, not just things you copied from a board. Here's the cool part. This process, this review process, can be extremely quick, okay? Because Reviewing can be as fast as 10 seconds, because if you're using a good mind map that you've created, well, you're just gonna look at it and you're gonna say, oh, shoot, I know everything here. Cool, next. Moving on. Next step, adapting. Now, this is the evaluation moment. This is kind of when you test yourself and you evaluate yourself, and when you give feedback to yourself. Not test yourself in the sense of giving a test, but hey, what is working for me? Here are a few questions that you could use. Are recordings helping me? Is my mind map good enough? How do I make it better? Or even, why did it take so long learning that subject? Or even, are my summaries too long? This is where you analyze your process so you can adapt, so you can improve, and then your next study session is going to be better. This fourth and final step is about growth, is about internalizing your feedback and about being better on the next round. Now that you have this guideline for your study sessions, you can go out and should probably, likely, 100% try this. Because here's the thing, most students don't realize and they overlook how important it is for you to have a plan. Because when people think of studying, sometimes they just think of sitting down and start reading a book. They don't have a plan. Having a plan makes total difference. Because otherwise, you're just gonna sit down and you're gonna do the first thing that comes to you. And then in that case, that first thing may not be the right thing for you to do. So you're gonna spend all day reading that text endlessly. And turns out at the end of the day, you know nothing. And now you're freaking out. So there you go. This is the EARA or SARA or EARA cycle created by Fernando Mesquita, and it's a very good way for you to organize your study sessions.